Welcome back, everyone, to a new story. We really hope you enjoy it. Selena, why does my voice sound so light and feminine? What's happening to me? It all started with an invitation that should have felt normal, but didn't. My life, up to that point, had been a study in beige. At 20 years old, I was the human equivalent of a waiting room unobtrusive, easily ignored, and furnished with a personality that was functional at best. I was a ghost in my own life, drifting through college classes and weekend routines with the quiet desperation of someone who secretly believes they were born without a vital component for living. My best friend, Mike, was the opposite: loud, confident, and effortlessly present. And his older sister, Selena, was on another plane of existence entirely. So when my phone buzzed with her name, my heart did a clumsy, frightened flip. It was a Thursday night. I was staring at a blank document on my laptop, pretending to start an essay that was already 2 days late. "Leo, are you busy?" Her voice was like honeyed whiskey, smooth and warm with a dangerous kick I could feel even through the phone's tiny speaker. No, not really. Just homework." My own voice sounded like a boy's, thin and reedy in comparison. "I need a favor," she said. Not so much asking as informing. My brother is useless, as usual, and I could really use a hand with something at my place. Can you come over? I should have made an excuse. The essay was a perfect one, but the thought of saying no to Selena was somehow more terrifying than the thought of saying yes. She had a way of looking at you, a half smile playing on her lips. That made you feel like she knew every single one of your pathetic little secrets. Resisting her was like trying to build a dam with sand. Sure, I heard myself say, "Yeah, I can be there in 20 minutes. "Perfect, see you soon." She hung up before I could lose my nerve. Selena lived in a sleek, modern house in the hills overlooking the city, a place of glass and steel that felt more like a corporate headquarters for a luxury brand than a home. It was a world away from the cramped apartment I shared with 2 other guys who communicated primarily through grunts and the smell of stale pizza. When I rang the bell, she opened the door herself. The breath hitched in my chest. She was wearing a simple, sleeveless black dress that hugged her body in a way that seemed to defy physics. It was elegant, severe, and devastatingly effective. Her dark hair was pulled back, emphasizing the sharp, intelligent lines of her face and the knowing glint in her dark eyes. That smile was there, the one that saw right through me. "Leo, you came. I knew I could count on you." She stepped aside, and I shuffled past her into the cavernous entryway. The air inside was cool and smelled faintly of jasmine and something else, something clean and expensive. "So, what did you need help with?" I asked, my hands shoved deep into the pockets of my jeans. I felt like a stray dog that had wandered into a palace. "Business first," she said, her smile widening. She glided into the living area, a vast space with a white leather sofa and a floor-to-ceiling window that offered a glittering panorama of the city lights below. "But before we get to that, you look thirsty." She didn't wait for an answer. She moved to a wet bar in the corner, her heels clicking softly on the polished concrete floor. She poured a shimmering pink liquid from a crystal decanter into a heavy glass. "What is it?" I asked, my curiosity warring with a primal instinct to be cautious. "Something special," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hush. She handed me the glass. It was cool against my nervous, sweaty palm. "Just a little something to help you relax. You always seem so tense, Leo." I stared at the liquid. It was beautiful, catching the light like a liquid gemstone. Against my better judgment, I took a sip. The flavor was overwhelming and intense. Cloying sweetness, like candied fruit and perfume, but underneath it, there was a strange, sharp tang. It was the distinct taste of metal, like licking a battery. It was unsettling, but not entirely unpleasant. I looked at her, and she just nodded, encouraging me. Thinking it would be rude to refuse, I drank the whole thing down in 2 long swallows. The effect was almost immediate. It wasn't like being drunk. It was stranger. A lightheadedness washed over me. A pleasant floating sensation that seemed to detach my mind from my body. The edges of the room softened. The city lights outside the window blurred into a soft, sparkling tapestry. My thoughts, usually a tangled mess of anxiety and self-criticism, slowed to a crawl, each one drifting by like a cloud. Selena's voice seemed to come from somewhere very close, as if she were speaking directly into my ear. Better. I nodded dumbly, my head feeling heavy on my neck. Yeah, better. Good. She took the empty glass from my unresisting fingers and set it aside. Then she gently took my arm. Her touch was firm and steady, anchoring me in my own pleasant fog. Now for that favor. She led me not to a garage or a study, but down a hallway to a bedroom. The door was already ajar, spilling warm, amber light into the corridor. The scent of jasmine was stronger here, thick and enveloping. She guided me inside and my gaze fell upon the bed, and I froze. Laid out on the pristine white duvet, as if for a sacred ceremony, was an impossible collection of items. There was a dress of the softest-looking pink silk, shimmering under the recessed lighting. Next to it, a pair of gossamer thin stockings, a delicate white that was almost translucent, and at the foot of the bed, a pair of metallic silver high heels, their stiletto points looking like deadly, beautiful weapons. I blinked, trying to clear the haze from my mind. The drink had made me suggestible, but not stupid. I knew what this was, I just couldn't comprehend why. I turned to her, my mouth dry. I tried to shake my head, a weak, wobbly gesture that did nothing to convey the panic blooming in my chest. What is this? I managed to whisper. Her smile was gone, replaced by an expression of serene purpose. That's the favor, Leo. That's for me. The words felt like stones in my mouth. She took a step closer, her presence filling the room, her confidence an unbreachable wall. Her dark eyes held mine, and I felt pinned in place. No, she said softly, her voice a velvet command. It's not for you, it's for her. Before I could process what that meant or summon the strength to run, she began to unbutton my shirt. My body was a traitor. The strange, languid paralysis from the drink left me unable to mount any real resistance. My arms felt like lead weights. My protest died in my throat as she slid the cheap cotton fabric from my shoulders, letting it pool around my feet. The cool air of the room on my bare skin was a shock, sending a shiver through me. Then came the silk. She picked up the pink dress, and the material whispered as it moved through the air. She slipped it over my head. The sensation was electric, a jolt that seemed to wake every nerve ending in my body. The fabric was unimaginably soft, yet cool and heavy as it slithered down my torso. It clung to my skin, outlining my skinny frame, my narrow shoulders, my flat chest. I let out a choked sound, a mix of horror and something else I couldn't name. She reached behind me, and I flinched as her fingers brushed against my back. The quiet, methodical rasp of the zipper closing felt like a lock being turned, sealing me inside this new, terrifying skin. The dress was snug, cinching at my waist and making me feel shockingly slender. I stood there, trembling. As she knelt down, she took one of my feet and slid on a stocking, her movements practiced and efficient. The nylon was like a cool mist against my leg, impossibly sheer. A second skin that felt both constricting and strangely pleasant. She did the other foot, her touch impersonal, as if she were dressing a mannequin. Then came the shoes. My feet, which had only ever known sneakers and work boots, were forced into the rigid, unforgiving shape of the heels. The straps were pulled tight around my ankles, caging me in. When she was done, she rose and took my hand, pulling me to my feet. I stumbled, my ankles wobbling precariously. The heels forced me into a new posture, my back arched, my balance thrown completely off. She held me steady until I stopped shaking. Now, she whispered, her voice husky with satisfaction, look! She turned me to face a full-length mirror on the wall, and the world tilted. It wasn't me. It couldn't be. The person staring back was a stranger, a tall, slender creature draped in pink silk. The dress transformed my boyish frame into something disturbingly delicate. My legs, encased in the sheer white stockings, looked long and shapely. My face was pale, my lips bloodless with shock, my eyes wide with a terror that looked almost like vulnerability. It was a picture of feminine frailty, and it was horrifying. And yet, too, underneath the terror, a tiny insidious thought flickered. In the soft light of the room, in this impossible disguise, There was a strange, haunting kind of beauty. I hated it. I hated it more than anything. Selena's hands came to rest on my shoulders, her reflection appearing behind the ghostly figure in the mirror. Her dark eyes met the stranger's eyes, my eyes, and her lips curved into that all-knowing smile once more. "There she is," she murmured, her voice filled with a quiet triumph. "Don't worry, this is just the beginning. Tomorrow, the real transformation begins." And looking at the chilling certainty in her gaze, I knew, with a final, sinking wave of dread, that this was not a joke. This was not a dream. This was my new reality. I woke to the feeling of being in the wrong body. It wasn't the grogginess of a hangover. It was a deeper, more fundamental sense of dislocation. My eyelids felt heavy and oddly delicate, as if they were made of thinner skin. My lips, when I pressed them together, were dry but strangely soft, and a dull, aching soreness permeated my muscles, a protest against the unnatural posture the heels had forced upon me the night before. I was lying in a guest bed, still wearing the pink silk dress. The fabric now rumpled and twisted around me like a shroud. The memory of the night before crashed down on me, not as a dream, but as a cold, concrete fact. The door opened with a soft click, and Selena entered. She was carrying a large cosmetics bag and a neat pile of folded clothes. She was dressed in sharp black trousers and a silk blouse, looking every bit the commander taking charge of her new recruit. "Rise and shine. Little girl," she said, her voice crisp and cheerful. The words landed like a physical blow. Little girl. My face flared with a heat that had nothing to do with the morning sun slanting through the blinds. It was a profound, suffocating shame, so intense it almost made me dizzy. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. "Time for your training," she continued. Oblivious, or more likely, indifferent to my turmoil, she placed the clothes and the bag on a chair. I tried to find my voice, the one that belonged to Leo. "Selena, I can't do this. This is insane. You have to let me go home." She turned to me, and her expression was patient, the way one might be with a child who doesn't understand what's good for them. "Oh, sweetie, you are home. Now, get up, we have a lot of work to do." There was no arguing. The drug from the night before had worn off, but its psychological effects lingered. A part of my will, the part that knew how to say no, felt eroded, washed away by that metallic sweet drink and her overwhelming certainty. Numbly, I swung my legs out of bed. The silk dress felt alien and intimate against my skin. "First things first," she said, her tone all business, off with that. She unzipped the pink dress and let it fall to the floor. I stood there in my boxers, exposed and shivering. "And those," she added, pointing at my underwear, my last bastion of masculinity. The shame was so acute it was a physical pain. I hesitated, my hands frozen. With an impatient sigh, she stepped forward. "Don't be shy." She hooked her fingers into the waistband and pulled them down. I squeezed my eyes shut, a useless gesture. When I opened them again, she was holding out a small confection of lace and silk, a pair of women's panties. They were a soft cream color, delicate and impossibly small. "Put them on," she ordered. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold them. The fabric was smooth and cool, a shocking sensation against my skin. It felt wrong, deeply, fundamentally wrong, but I did it. Then came the bra. It was a lacy, underwired thing that she expertly fastened behind my back. The cups were empty, of course, but the tight band constricting my chest was a constant, pressing reminder of what was supposed to be there. It forced me to stand up straighter. Next was a dress, a simple navy blue sheath dress that ended just above the knee. It was form-fitting, hugging my waist and hips. To go with it, she handed me a garter belt and a pair of thigh-high stockings in a sheer nude color. The process of attaching the clips was clumsy and humiliating, her guiding my fingers when I fumbled. Each piece of clothing felt like another layer of my old self being stripped away and replaced with something foreign. The final touch was a pair of low heels, a sensible black pump. "For practice," she explained. The combination of sensations was a dizzying assault. The constriction of the bra, the smooth slide of the panties against my skin, the tight grip of the garter belt on my thighs, the precarious balance of the heels. It was a cage made of fabric and leather, and yet it forced a kind of grace upon me. I had to hold my shoulders back. I had to take smaller steps. I felt fragile and self-conscious, hyper-aware of my own body in a way I'd never been before. "All right, let's see you walk," Selena commanded, stepping back to observe. I took a tentative step, then another. I felt like a newborn foal, all wobbly legs and uncertainty. "No, no, no," she sighed. "Relax your shoulders." She came up behind me and pressed down firmly on my shoulders until they dropped. "Your steps are too heavy. Lighter. Think of yourself as gliding, not marching," she demonstrated, her own walk fluid and effortless. "And for God's sake, stop holding your hips so stiffly. Let them move a little. Your arms. Don't let them hang like limp sausages." For the next hour, she drilled me, back and forth across the polished floor of the bedroom. Each time I made a mistake, she was there to correct it, her touch light but firm, a tap on my lower back to straighten my spine, her hand on my waist, guiding a subtle sway, a finger under my chin, lifting it. Her proximity was unnerving, her corrections intimate. I was a puppet, and she was pulling the strings, teaching my body a language it didn't know. The more she touched me, the more my focus blurred, the resistance in my mind melting away into a simple, desperate desire to just get it right, to stop making mistakes, to please her. Finally, she seemed satisfied. Better, barely passable, but better. She steered me toward a vanity table I hadn't noticed before, its surface cluttered with bottles, tubes, and pallets. Now for the face. She pushed me down onto the small cushioned stool and stood behind me, forcing me to look at my own reflection in the large, brightly lit mirror. I looked pale and terrified, my short hair a messy, boyish halo around a face that was about to be violated. "Stay still," she ordered. The next half hour was a blur of alien textures and scents, the damp chill of foundation being sponged onto my skin, the tickle of a soft brush dusting powder across my cheeks, leaving a faint, rosy flush in its wake, the delicate, precise pull of an eyeliner pencil along my lash line, forcing my eyes to water, the clumpy, wet feeling of mascara being painted onto my lashes. My face, my own face, was being erased and redrawn into something else. The final touch was the lipstick. She chose a subtle shade of rosy pink. As she leaned in to apply it, her face was inches from mine. I could smell the jasmine scent of her perfume, feel the warmth of her body. My breath caught in my throat. She carefully painted the color onto my lips, her expression one of intense concentration, like an artist finishing a masterpiece. When she was done, she stepped back. "Okay, look now." I forced my gaze up to the mirror, and I swallowed hard, a painful lump forming in my throat. It was not Leo. Leo was gone. Staring back at me was the face of a shy, pretty girl with wide, frightened eyes and soft pink lips. The makeup had softened my jawline, highlighted my cheekbones, and made my eyes look larger and more expressive. The face in the mirror was vulnerable, delicate, and utterly unrecognizable. It was a stranger wearing my skin, a stranger Selena had created. The sight of it sent a shudder of revulsion through me, but it was tangled with a horrifying thread of fascination. That girl in the mirror, she was prettier than I could have imagined. Selena leaned in close, her lips brushing against my ear. Her voice was a low, hypnotic whisper, sealing her creation with a final, devastating pronouncement. "Perfect," she murmured, her breath warm against my skin. "You suit this more than you think." And as I stared at the girl in the mirror, a terrifying part of me began to wonder if she was right. A few days passed in a haze of drills and fittings. My world shrank to the confines of Selena's glass and steel house. My time was measured in the click of heels on the floor, the rustle of different fabrics, and the soft whisper of makeup brushes. The boy named Leo felt like a character from a book I'd read long ago. His jeans, his sneakers, his slouch, they were memories belonging to someone else. I was becoming adept at walking, sitting, and moving in a body that was no longer entirely my own. One morning, as I was carefully applying a coat of mascara under her watchful eye, she was teaching me to do it myself now. Selena announced it was time. Time for what I asked. My voice a little steadier now, but still pitched higher than it used to be. It was a habit I was picking up without even trying. A field trip, she said with a bright, predatory smile. You're ready to go out in public. A cold brick of panic settled in my stomach. No, I'm not. I can't, Selena. People will know, they'll stare, they'll laugh. She simply raised an eyebrow, her expression unyielding. Don't be ridiculous. They'll see a quiet, pretty young woman running errands with her friend. You'll be invisible in the most perfect way. Now, what are we going to wear? The outfit she chose was a careful piece of strategy. It wasn't overtly sexy, but it was undeniably feminine. A pleated A-line skirt in a soft cream color that swished around my knees, a simple navy blue silk blouse tucked into the waistband, and a matching cream cardigan. The heels were slightly higher than my practice pumps, with a delicate ankle strap that made me feel even more precarious. She finished the look with a small leather handbag. You have to carry a purse, she'd instructed. A woman's hands are never empty. The car ride to the mall was silent agony. I sat rigid in the passenger seat, hyper-aware of the way the skirt was draped over my thighs, the way the seatbelt cut across my chest, pressing the fabric of the blouse against the empty bra. I stared out the window, watching the familiar world go by, feeling completely detached from it. Every person I saw on the street felt like a threat, a potential judge. Stepping out of the car in the vast, sun-drenched parking lot was the first real test. The asphalt was uneven, a minefield for my heels. The breeze caught my skirt, making it flutter against my bare legs, a sensation that was both pleasant and terrifyingly exposed. The weight of the handbag felt awkward, unnatural. Chin up, walk like you own the place, Selena murmured, taking my arm and steering me toward the entrance. The moment we passed through the automatic glass doors, I was hit by a wall of sensory overload, the bright fluorescent lights, the echo of 1,000 conversations, the scent of popcorn and perfume. It was all too much. I was convinced every single person had stopped to stare at the freak, the boy in a dress. I ducked my head, my cheeks burning. Stop that, Selena hissed, her grip on my arm tightening. Look straight ahead, soft smile, and for the love of God, stop walking like you're hauling lumber, small steps, from the hip. Her voice was a lifeline and a leash, guiding me through the crowded concourse. I focused on her words, on putting one heeled foot carefully in front of the other. We walked past groups of teenagers, past mothers with strollers, past men in business suits. No one pointed, no one laughed. A few people glanced our way, their eyes sliding over me with the same casual indifference they gave everyone else. They saw a woman. The realization was both a profound relief and a deep, soul-shaking shock. Our first stop was a high-end boutique, a place filled with clothes I couldn't have afforded in 100 lifetimes. A smiling sales associate with perfectly coiffed hair approached us. Good afternoon, ladies. Can I help you find anything today? She chirped, her eyes flitting between Selena and me. Ladies, the word rang in my ears. My friend is looking for a new dress, Selena said smoothly, gesturing toward me. Something for a special occasion. The associate turned her professional smile on me. Of course. Do you have a color in mind? I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My throat was clamped shut with fear. Selena nudged me gently. She's a bit shy, she explained to the woman. Then she whispered to me, use your voice, higher pitch. I cleared my throat and managed to squeak out, maybe blue. The saleswoman beamed. An excellent choice. It would bring out your eyes. She led me toward a rack of dresses, chattering about fabrics and cuts. Selena made me try on a cocktail dress in a deep sapphire blue. In the dressing room, struggling with the zipper, I caught a glimpse of myself in the three-way mirror. The girl from Selena's house was still there, but she looked less terrified now, just anxious. The saleswoman's casual acceptance had been a powerful sedative. Our next stop was a cafe in the center of the mall. Selena ordered 2 lattes and we found a small table. I was learning how to sit properly, ankles crossed, back straight, hands resting gently on my purse in my lap. It was exhausting. A full-body performance that required constant vigilance. I watched the people around us, feeling a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. I was hiding in plain sight. I was so wrapped up in my thoughts that I didn't notice the barista, a young man about my age with a friendly smile, approaching our table with our drinks. 2 lattes, he said. Setting them down carefully, his eyes met mine for a second, and he gave a small, almost shy smile. "Here you go, enjoy." As he turned to walk away, he glanced back over his shoulder. "By the way," he said, looking directly at me, "I love your blouse. You look really lovely." The world stopped. My brain short-circuited. For a moment. I forgot who I was, where I was, what I was wearing. The compliment was so simple, so genuine, so normal. It was directed at the girl I was pretending to be. My hand, which had been reaching for my cup, jerked spasmodically, and I nearly knocked it over. A wave of heat rushed up my neck and flooded my face, a blush so intense I was sure it was visible from space. Selena reached across the table and placed her hand on mine, squeezing it gently but firmly. The pressure was a grounding force. I looked at her, my eyes wide with panic and confusion. She just smiled, a slow, deeply satisfied smile. "See," she whispered, her voice a triumphant purr. "What did I tell you? They see you exactly the way I want them to." The barista was gone. The moment had passed, but something inside me had fundamentally shifted. The shame was still there, a low, constant hum beneath the surface. But now it was mixed with a new and dangerously seductive feeling, the feeling of being seen, of being admired not as Leo, the invisible boy, but as his other person, this creation. As we walked back to the car, my steps felt a little steadier, my posture a little straighter. I was exhausted, but for the first time, mixed in with the fear, there was a strange and unfamiliar flicker of pride. That evening, the atmosphere in the house was different. There was a charge in the air, a sense of anticipation that made me nervous. Selena had informed me earlier that we would have a guest for dinner. A good friend of mine. She'd said casually, "I want you to meet him." The announcement sent a fresh wave of performance anxiety through me. My excursion to the mall had been one thing, an anonymous trial run. This was different. This was a command performance. "Tonight, you need to be perfect," she said as she assessed me in front of the mirror. For the occasion, she had selected a classic little black dress. It was deceptively simple, with a modest neckline and 3/4 sleeves, but it was cut to fit my body like a second skin, clinging to my waist and hips before flaring out slightly at the hem. It made me look elegant and shockingly sophisticated. She paired it with sheer black stockings that felt like smoke against my legs and a pair of black stiletto heels that were higher than any I had worn before. Just standing in them was a challenge. As she worked on my makeup, applying a smoky eyeshadow and a bold red lipstick that made my mouth feel like a scarlet wound, she dropped the other bombshell. "Our guest's name is Jason," she said, her focus entirely on blending the color on my eyelids. "And your name for tonight and from now on is Lila." Lila, the name echoed in the sudden silence of my mind. It sounded soft, feminine, and utterly alien. Leo, Lila. The two names felt like polar opposites, the bookends of a life that had been split in two. "Why?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Because Leo is gone," she said simply, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Lila is much more fitting for the woman you're becoming." Just as she was adding a final spritz of perfume to my wrists, the doorbell rang. My heart leaped into my throat. "I can't," I breathed, turning to her in a panic. "Selena, please." She just smiled, placing her hands on my shoulders and looking me dead in the eye. "Yes, you can. Lila, now take a deep breath and remember everything I taught you." She left the room, and I could hear her heels clicking down the hall. I heard her greet someone, her voice warm and inviting, followed by a man's deeper, pleasant laugh. My hands were ice cold. I felt like an actor on opening night who had forgotten all his lines. A moment later, Selena reappeared in the doorway, and beside her was the most handsome man I had ever seen in real life. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with sandy blonde hair, a strong jaw, and eyes the color of warm honey. He wore a crisp blue shirt and dark trousers, and he radiated an easy, unforced confidence that I could only dream of. This was Jason. "Jason, I'd like you to meet my dear friend." "Lila?" Selena said, her voice smooth as silk. She gestured toward me. Jason's warm eyes landed on me, and his face broke into a genuine, breathtaking smile. All my prepared anxieties, all my fears of being discovered, simply evaporated under the sheer force of that smile. He saw exactly what Selena had designed him to see. "Lila," he said, his voice as warm as his eyes. He stepped forward and took my hand. His was large and warm, enveloping my much smaller, colder one. "It's a real pleasure to meet you. That's a beautiful name. It suits you." My face was on fire. I managed a shy smile in return. The word "you," directed at me, at Lila, sent a jolt through my system. He was talking to her. "Thank you," I murmured, my voice coming out softer and higher than I'd intended. The evening was a masterclass in subtle manipulation. Orchestrated by Selena, Jason was the perfect gentleman. He pulled out my chair for me at the dinner table. He poured my wine, making sure my glass was never empty. But most devastatingly, he focused his attention almost entirely on me. He asked me questions, his expression one of genuine interest. "So Lila, Selena tells me you're new in town. Where are you from?" My mind went blank. I shot a panicked look at Selena, who gave me an infinitesimal nod. A backstory. Of course she prepared a backstory. A small town, back east. I improvised, pulling details from a half-remembered novel. "It's very different from here." "I can imagine," he chuckled. "Well, I hope the city is treating you well so far." Throughout the meal, I found myself slipping into the role of Lila with terrifying ease. In the face of his unambiguous admiration, the nervous, clumsy boy I used to be simply had no place to exist. I laughed at his jokes, a light, tinkling sound I didn't recognize as my own. I used the delicate, graceful gestures Selena had drilled into me. When I spoke, my voice naturally adopted a softer cadence. I was performing the role of my life, and to my horror, I was enjoying it. He would compliment me in small, casual ways that felt like tiny, expertly aimed arrows. "You have a lovely laugh. Lila, those earrings look great on you." Each one landed squarely in the fragile heart of my new identity, making it stronger, more real. I could feel myself blushing, a real, uncontrollable blush that had nothing to do with shame and everything to do with the fluttery, unfamiliar feeling of being desired. At one point, Jason's phone buzzed, and he excused himself to take the call on the balcony. The moment he was out of earshot, Selena leaned across the table, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "Do you see?" she whispered fiercely. "He's captivated. You're desirable. Lila, remember that your greatest value, your greatest power, is when you are her." Her words sank into me, not as a manipulation, but as a profound truth. As Leo, I was invisible. As Lila, I was the center of a handsome man's attention. The math was simple and brutal. When Jason returned, he apologized for the interruption and smiled at me again, and that dangerous, fluttery feeling returned with a vengeance. The rest of the evening passed in a dreamlike haze. When it was time for him to leave, he took my hand again at the door. "I had a wonderful time tonight, Lila," he said, his thumb brushing gently over my knuckles. "I'd love to see you again soon." "I'd like that," I replied, my voice a breathy whisper. After he was gone and the door was closed, I stood frozen in the hallway, my entire body humming with a strange new energy. The shame of my situation, the horror of what Selena was doing to me, it was all still there, but it was now hopelessly entangled with the intoxicating thrill of Jason's attention. For the first time, being a girl, being Lila, didn't just feel like a terrifying costume, it felt like a privilege. The days following Jason's visit marked a new phase in my transformation. The training intensified, becoming a meticulous, all-encompassing regimen designed to erase every last trace of Leo. My life became a series of feminizing rituals, each one chipping away at the boy I used to be and polishing the girl I was becoming. Selena took me to a high-end hair salon. The scent of chemicals and expensive shampoo filled the air. I sat in the chair, draped in a black cape, and watched in the mirror as a stylist with sharp scissors and an even sharper bob cut away my boyish, unkempt hair. He snipped and shaped, chattering away to Lila about layering and volume. When he was finished, my hair was a soft, chin-length bob that curved perfectly along my jawline, framing my face and making my eyes seem even larger. Running my fingers through it felt completely alien. It was soft and swung with a lightness I'd never experienced. Next came a trip to a nail salon for a manicure and pedicure. I sat awkwardly as a woman filed my nails into a neat, rounded shape and then painted them a demure, glossy shade of ballet slipper pink, the sight of my own hands, which I'd only ever known as clumsy and functional, now looking so manicured and delicate, was deeply unsettling. They no longer looked like my hands. They were Lila's hands. The lessons continued at home. Selena taught me how to apply my own makeup, guiding my unsteady hand until I could draw a clean line of eyeliner and apply lipstick without smudging. She taught me how to get out of a car in a skirt without being indecent, a complicated maneuver of keeping my knees together and swiveling gracefully. We practiced different kinds of smiles in the mirror: the polite social smile, the shy, blushing smile, the warm, inviting smile. She also started taking photographs of me. "To document your progress," she'd say, circling me with her phone's camera. I'd have to pose in different outfits: a sundress in the garden, an evening gown by the fireplace, a casual skirt and blouse on the sofa. I felt like a doll being positioned for display. The process was objectifying and humiliating. Yet seeing the photos later was always a shock. The girl in the pictures was beautiful. She looked poised and confident in a way Leo had never been. Looking at her, it became harder and harder to connect with the awkward boy in my memories. Slowly, my body began to betray me by adapting. I stopped tripping in heels, my balance adjusting until the walk felt almost natural. The constant, tight pressure of a bra against my ribs faded from a discomfort into a familiar presence. The floral scent of the perfume Selena had chosen for me no longer smelled like something I was wearing. It simply smelled like me. My very sense of self was being rewritten, one sensory detail at a time. I started to dream as Lila. The breaking point came one night about a week after Jason's visit. I had just removed my makeup, scrubbing my face clean until the skin was raw. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at my reflection under the harsh fluorescent lights. I was looking for Leo. I searched for him in the line of my jaw, the shape of my nose, the color of my eyes, but I couldn't find him. The face staring back at me was a stranger's. Its features had been softened by a new skincare routine. Its expressions had been trained into feminine delicacy. The ghost of Lila's smile still haunted the corners of its mouth. The boy I was, the person I had been my entire life, was gone. He was a phantom. A wave of pure, undiluted panic washed over me. It was a vertiginous, terrifying sense of loss. I wasn't just a boy in a dress anymore. I was nothing. I was a void between two identities. My breath came in ragged gasps. I gripped the sides of the sink, my knuckles white. "Who am I?" I whispered to the stranger in the mirror, my voice cracking with despair. "Am I even me anymore?" Tears welled in my eyes and streamed down my cheeks. A sob tore its way out of my chest. A raw, ugly sound of grief for a self I had lost. At that moment, the door opened softly. It was Selena. She must have heard me. She came and stood behind me, her reflection joining mine in the mirror. She didn't say anything at first. She simply wrapped her arms around my trembling shoulders, pulling me back against her. Her embrace wasn't comforting in a sisterly way. It was possessive, the way a sculptor might hold a piece of clay she was molding. "Shh," she murmured, her voice a soothing balm on my frayed nerves. "You're not losing anything, Lila. You're just shedding the parts that were holding you back, the weakness, the invisibility. You're becoming who you were always meant to be." Her words were poison wrapped in silk. She wasn't comforting me. She was reframing my complete loss of identity as a triumphant purification. I wanted to fight her, to scream that she was wrong, that she had stolen my life. But I was too exhausted, too broken. I just sagged against her, my sobs quieting into weary whimpers. And then, a sound cut through my despair. A soft buzz from the bedroom. My phone, or rather, the new phone Selena had given me. The one with Lila's number was on the nightstand. Selena seemed to know. "Go see what that is," she whispered, releasing me. Numbly, I walked back into the bedroom and picked up the phone. The screen was lit up with a new text message. My heart gave a painful thud. It was from Jason. "Hi, Lila. It's Jason. I can't stop thinking about our dinner. Would you be free to get a coffee this weekend?" I read the words once, then twice. A strange, powerful emotion surged through me. eclipsing the grief and despair. It was a hot, thrilling wave of pure, unadulterated joy. A giddy anticipation bubbled up inside me, completely unforced. I wanted to see him again. Lila wanted to see him again. And the realization of that desire was the most terrifying thing of all, because it was no longer an act. It was real. That involuntary leap of my heart was the final nail in Leo's coffin. The old me, the real me, would have been terrified. But the old me was almost gone, and the girl who was taking his place was happy. The air in the house grew heavy in the days that followed. The text from Jason had been a tipping point, a seismic event that had settled the tectonic plates of my psyche into a new and terrifying alignment. I had agreed to the coffee date, my fingers trembling as I typed out the reply under Selena's smug supervision. The date was set for Sunday. It was now Friday evening. Selena found me in my room, staring out the window at the setting sun. She said nothing, simply took my hand and led me down the hallway. Her touch was gentle, but there was an undeniable finality in her grip. I knew where we were going. We stopped outside the door to the bedroom from that very first night, the room where Leo had walked in and Lila had been born. She pushed the door open, and my breath caught. The room was exactly as I remembered it. The lighting was the same warm, amber glow. The air was thick with the same intoxicating scent of jasmine. It felt like sacred ground, the site of a sacrifice. And there on the bed lay the offering. 2 distinct piles of clothing rested on the pristine white duvet. On the left side lay a ghost of my past life, my old, worn-out jeans, the faded band t-shirt I'd been wearing, my scuffed-up sneakers. They looked so drab, so lifeless. They were the uniform of a boy I barely remembered, a boy who hid from the world. They were coarse, heavy, and utterly alien. On the right side lay the future. It was a dress, but one more beautiful than any I had worn before. It was made of a deep burgundy velvet that seemed to drink the light, with long, elegant sleeves and a cut that was both modest and exquisitely form-fitting. Beside it was a pair of sheer black stockings and a pair of delicate, strappy black heels. It was Lila's armor. It was a promise. My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew what this was. This was a ceremony, a final test. Selena finally spoke, her voice low and steady, a judge delivering a final verdict. "It's time to choose, Lila," she said softly. "The game is over. No more half measures. No more looking back. Who are you?" I stood frozen, my eyes darting between the 2 choices. It felt like my entire existence was balanced on a knife's edge. My mind screamed at me to grab the jeans, to run out of this house and never look back, to try and find the boy I'd lost. He had to be in there somewhere, buried beneath the layers of silk and lace and shame. My hand, moving with a will of its own, reached out toward the clothes on the left. My fingers brushed against the rough, familiar denim of the jeans. I tried to conjure a feeling, a memory, a connection to the person who wore them. I thought of my old apartment, my college classes, my friend Mike. But the feelings were muted, like faded photographs. That life felt distant, a story about someone else, a sad, lonely story about an invisible boy. The fabric felt coarse and foreign against my manicured fingertips. Then, my gaze shifted to the dress. The rich, dark velvet beckoned to me. It represented something terrifying, but also something powerful. It was the color of confidence, of wine, of Jason's admiring glances. It was the key to a world where I wasn't invisible, where I wasn't ignored. I thought of the barista's compliment, of Jason's warm smile, of the exhilarating, heart-stopping thrill of being seen as beautiful. My hand moved from the jeans to the dress. The moment my fingers touched the velvet, a profound sense of calm washed over me. The fabric was soft, plush, and cool. It felt like coming home. The internal war that had been raging inside me for weeks suddenly went silent. The battle was over. A choice had been made, not by my mind, but by my soul. Without a word, I picked up the dress. I could feel Selena's eyes on me, her presence a silent, triumphant weight in the room. I slipped out of the simple day dress I was wearing and let it fall to the floor. Then, I pulled the velvet dress over my head. It slid over my skin like a liquid embrace, fitting me as if it had been made for me. I turned to the full-length mirror. my movements no longer clumsy or hesitant, but fluid and sure. The girl who stared back at me was not the terrified stranger I had first seen in the pink silk. This girl was different. Her eyes, framed by the dark velvet, were clear. Her posture was erect. A quiet confidence emanated from her. She was no longer afraid. She was complete. I turned to face Selena. The last remnants of my old voice were gone, replaced by a softer, clearer tone that was entirely Lila's. The words came not as a surrender, but as a statement of fact, a final liberating confession. "I am her," I said, my voice steady. "I'm her. Selena, I'm your girl." A slow, victorious smile spread across Selena's face. It was the smile of an artist who had just completed her masterpiece. She stepped forward and gently placed her hand on my cheek, her touch both a blessing and a brand. "Welcome home, Lila." The door to Leo's life had closed, silently and forever, and in the warm, jasmine-scented room, the life of the girl in the mirror was just beginning.